So it is Friday night, waiting for my steak to rest and some green beans as a side, just to have something a little bit with less fat on the plate. But in a slightly better mood, I did have a gin martini, so there's definitely things when you drink alcohol with foods. There's aperitifs, and then there's alcohol's a pair with foods. To me, wine mostly. Certainly you could have like a beer or something, cider, something along those lines with a burger, wings. I don't think wings and wine is a thing. I'm sure it can be, but maybe rosé works. Rosé is kind of this wine that fits with a lot of things. Rosé and barbecue. I could see even going with a burger for sure. So, and you're never really paying a whole heck of a lot unless you're going into the upper echelon of rosé. And then you have digestifs, bourbons, cognacs, brown liquors, aged rums, whatever it may be, grappas. But those aperitifs open up the appetite, just like an appetizer would. But a martini that I had, a gin martini with, I think it was Blue Coat gin, and I used a, which is vermouth, but it's a vermouth with a little less dry. It's been a while since I had a distraction, but slightly good mood. Been a long week. Halloween stuff's away finally, and it's almost mid-November for that to happen. It just takes a long time, and just back to get to living life. I'm decanted a Chateau Patek Canet 2020. So, is this the best Bordeaux? What is the best anything, really? To each their own, but I have a special place in my heart for this chateau, for this wine, but I do believe it is absolutely fantastic and not cheap anymore. But what is inexpensive? What is expensive? I think this 2020 was about 100. Better vintages are 150, 200. So they've gone up from the days when I used to pay 50. I overpoured this, but it's only been decanting for about an hour. And sometimes it expresses itself very quickly, but I believe Patek Canet needs a little bit more time in bottle, and then it needs decant, and then it's amazing. Truly amazing. I've had one vintage only that I was a little not super thrilled with, and then I think the next night it opened up more, but it still was uncharacteristically not what I expect from it, which is finesse, body, structure, power. Everything that I really want in a wine is here, but when I'm in the mood for a bigger wine. Now, they have gotten more restrained. I do not believe 13.5%. So across the wine world, there's a new push for fresher, more acidic, more food friendly, and not these giant palate killers that decimate your palate. And then you don't really want anything else, or you only want a glass of something because it's just so heavy and concentrated and maybe just too much. So 13.5% is pretty low in today's standards of wine. So let's see. What Cabernet heavy wine, although there's a fair bit of Merlot in here. I forget what else. I'm pretty sure they're fully biodynamic now, for whatever that's worth. And I also think they do some amphora aging as well as barrel aging, but I don't know all the techniques they use to make this wine. There's fruit, there's dark fruit, there's a little bit of a rusticity on the nose, but not nearly as much as that Chateau Cantermel from a couple videos ago. And it still feels a little bit closed on the nose, but I think it'll open up over the course of the night. I do intend on drinking this whole bottle. It'll take hours for me to consume it, and I think that's the best way to consume something like this, is just gradually decant it, nice flat surface, let it really open up. It is young. Bordeaux can age for decades. I do believe there's a sweet spot for everybody, though, with aged red and aged white. I don't believe a lot of people are into the aged white. I just ordered a whole bunch of aged white from Alsace, France, Rieslings. Oh my gosh, so much tannin. This is still very, very, very young. I have another one, and I'm gonna wait 5 years. It's pretty furry still. When I say that, I mean there's just a lot of tannin. It makes your mouth pucker and dry out immediately. There's all sorts of complexity and flavors. They're all over the place, but it is still even 13.5%. The tannin is, it's there. Most definitely Bordeaux-esque, though. What's crazy, there's some dried fruit here, which is a little weird for something that's this young rather than big ripe fruit. I don't know a lot about the 2020 vintage out of the left bank being Cabernet heavy in Bordeaux, which is where Cabernet came from, Cabernet Sauvignon. It's a touch austere at first. I think this needs to decant longer, or this with the steak is going to be insane. Insanely good. I could feel the fat melding into those tannins and just making this wine sing. All the dark fruits there. It is a lot of blackberry, and I'm getting a concentrated raspberry aroma and flavor a little bit. There's a nose of what they call forest floor, which is a odd characteristic, but it is called out a lot, and it has a little bit of that. Walking through a wet forest, there's a certain aroma. You wouldn't think it's super appealing, but in the fall, for some, there's some appeal to it. Now, it's not the predominant aroma, nor are you tasting leaves or rain or something along those lines, but it's called out a lot of forest floor, which kind of means it's a little bit earthy and soily, leafy, and there's just these other components to it that aren't just all big, boisterous fruit. And that is pretty typical of Bordeaux. Cedar's there for sure. There's oak influence, but it's not a ton. I wonder, since I've been drinking Pontet-Canet, it feels like the last few vintages I've had, which were younger, taste different than what I remember it. And I wonder if they're going into amphora and clay vessels to age the wine is changing it, where I think when he first bought the property, I forget what year it was, Alfred Tesseron, that they were just using barriques, barrels, wood, oak. And now by adding other techniques, it's changed this wine. I don't know. I don't know when the switchover was. But if you tell me it was 17 or 18, because I think I had a 19 and now a 20, and to me they taste different than the 16, which I have 5 or 6 of, which were super high rated, and I have the 09 still, which we opened on my 50th. 100, I think it got 100 points. I feel like this wine is changing, and what it's telling me is it just needs more time, that it's just too early to open. Now, the irony is that most wines, Barolo was the most notorious for this. You couldn't open a Barolo, which is a Nebbiolo wine, for 10 years. It was so tannic and so drying and on the mouth, you couldn't open it. Now that's gone away. There's still some modernists that sort of work that direction, but even the classists, the traditionalists, the modernists have gone to more small oak barriques, more approachable wine earlier. The people that have stayed classic have stayed with these giant, I forget what they call them, giant oak vessels that would impart a furriness and a tannin to the wine. Needed 10 years to soften to be enjoyable. Of course, that doesn't let the consumer try the wine early enough, plus it hurts sales. So that a lot of these Barolo producers changed business strategies for sure. It made sense. It was made fiscal sense. Then there's some that were in the middle, the centrists, that kind of did a little bit of each. And I don't know what Bordeaux did with all that. I feel like Bordeaux is always I think the inexpensive Bordeaux was approachable early. The further up the growths you went, which 1855 classification, which was all based on price back then. So it's kind of not a great indication because so many things have changed in that many years, of course. But the first growths just need more time, generally speaking, and show more as they get older. But you have to be prepared for what that older red wine will bring to you. And interruption number 2. I haven't had interruptions in ages. I think this will go great with the food. Right now it's hard for me to judge. I think it's just too closed. It's just too closed, or it's either just too closed or just too young. And I've spoken about this in the past, and I don't know how to distinguish it. They call it a dumb phase for a wine, where the wine just closes and it doesn't really express itself well enough. I believe this is expressing itself, but maybe not what I'm normally used to out of such a high pedigree of wine. I don't know enough about wine or have drank enough vintages of the same wine in a row to know, okay, that one is still in a dumb phase, or it's closed, which is what they call the dumb phase, or this one's ready to drink, or this one's a little too tannic, or this one could go 10 more years because of the tannin and because of the acid. Typically high tannin, high acid means a wine can be aged longer and not lose too much of itself. But you could absolutely overdo it. I used to age wine longer than I should have, and I had some wines I had dumped because they were just so bad. And not every grape is meant to be aged, for sure, and that's okay. What is the percentage? 98% of wine, I'm not 100% sure on this, but something around this. 98% of wine purchased is drank within 8 hours of purchase. So do that with what you will. Yeah, this tannin is kicking my butt. Still, it's there and it's astringent. I think the same thing happened to me with the last time I had a Ponte Canet. I'd have to look at my Vivino. I'm pretty sure it was a 19, and I think I probably did the same exact thing, same exact dance, and then the next day it softened. The problem tonight is I decanted the whole bottle. So maybe a little bit ambitious and overzealous tonight. I should have decanted half and kept the other half for tomorrow. Maybe this is what it's telling me, that in this price range, this 100 to 150, I might just need to find another Bordeaux that speaks to me like this used to. Because right this moment, as excited as I was to open this tonight, I am a little bit disappointed at this moment. And I am a monster fan. I wanted to do a little short video right after this one saying how this is the best Bordeaux for the money, bang for your buck, dollar for dollar, pound for pound, and no, I can't do that tonight. No way. Not with the way this is. It's just not there right now. Could it get there? I guess so. If I did 2016, I'd tell you yes, absolutely. Greatest Bordeaux I've ever had. Or one of the great Bordeaux. Was 2020, just has an astringency and a tannin and a drying component and just not enough other parts right this moment to be in that same conversation as the 2016. You know what I've noticed is Bordeaux is definitely more vintage dependent than some other places in the world. Napa's just done so well for so many years, and Gosh, I just looked at it, and it was 2017, got a low 90 score for a vintage. There was an 80-something score in the 2020 vintage, I think. And then one of them was the Fire vintage, 21, 20, I forget. Somewhere in there, I think 21 is actually a vintage out of Napa that did not, finally, a vintage that wasn't super highly ranked. But then 22, 23, 24, they're talking crazy stuff with 22, 23, 24. As typical as Napa can be. Their weather is just more consistent than Bordeaux. So, 15 minutes rest on that steak, longer than I wanted, but I think there was conversation warranted with this wine in general. And that is it for tonight. Have a good night.